Myself Prakash Chandra Paricha. I am head of the department Zoology, Ramadevi Women's University, Bhubaneswar. Today we will be discussing the excretory system. The different modes of excretion and the excretory system in human beings and the mechanism of urine formation. So, first of all, you should know what is excretion. Excretion is the removal of waste products of metabolism from the body. In a living body, metabolic activities occur, and during those metabolic activities, different products are formed. Some products they are useful for the body, and some products they are not useful, they are waste products. So, those waste products of metabolism must be removed from the body, because if those waste products of metabolism, if allowed to accumulate in the body, they will disturb the steady state. So, it is very much necessary that the waste products of metabolism must be removed from the body, and this process of removal of waste products of metabolism from the body is called excretion. When we talk of metabolic waste products, it refers to So, these are usually the waste products of metabolism: carbon dioxide, water, bile pigments, and nitrogenous waste products. Carbon dioxide is removed, most of the carbon dioxide from the body is removed by respiratory system. Water is removed by excretory system. Also, water can be removed through sweating. By perspiration, water is also lost from the body. Bile pigments they are produced during breakdown of hemoglobin, and they are excreted or removed from the body by the through the digestive system. Then what is left is nitrogenous waste material or nitrogenous waste products. Nitrogenous waste materials refer to those substances, waste substances or waste materials that contain nitrogen. So, carbon dioxide, it is removed by, mostly it is removed by respiratory system. Water, for removal of water from the body there are several routes. Bile pigments they are removed from the body through the digestive system, whereas nitrogenous waste materials they are removed mainly by the excretory system. Nitrogenous waste products they are removed from the body by the excretory system. So, when we talk of excretion, it refers to, actually it refers to the removal of nitrogenous waste materials from the body. What are the nitrogenous waste materials? They are these substances: ammonia, urea and uric acid. These are the nitrogenous waste materials which are removed by the excretory system. All these, they contain nitrogen. These are nitrogen containing waste materials. These nitrogenous waste materials are formed in the body by the breakdown of proteins, by the breakdown of amino acids, and by the breakdown of nucleotides or nucleic acids. Animals, they are divided into three categories or three groups basing on what is their major nitrogenous waste material. There are some animals where the major nitrogenous waste product is ammonia, or nitrogenous waste material from the body is removed in the form of ammonia. Those organisms are called ammonotelic organisms. There are animals which remove nitrogenous waste materials mainly in the form of urea. They are ureotelic. Another group of animals, they remove nitrogenous waste materials in the form of uric acid. They are known as uricotelic. So, basing on what is the main nitrogenous waste material in the body, or in what form the nitrogenous waste material is excreted from the body, animals can be either ammonotelic, ureotelic, or uricotelic. During the breakdown of proteins or amino acids, the first nitrogenous waste material formed is ammonia. There are animals which excrete nitrogenous waste materials in the form of ammonia. Ammonia is highly toxic. At the same time, it is highly soluble in water. Since it is highly toxic, it cannot be retained in the body in a concentrated form. And since it is highly soluble in water, for its removal from the body, a lot of water is required. So, ammonotelic excretion or removal of nitrogenous waste materials from the body in the form of ammonia is suitable for those animals which live in fresh water. For example, freshwater bonifishes. These freshwater bonifishes, their habitat is freshwater, so they have easy access to water, plenty of water is available. So, as soon as ammonia is formed in the body, it diffuses out to the surrounding water along with water. So, it is suitable for those animals which live in fresh water, and they have plenty of availability of water. But for those animals which are not aquatic, or which don't have ready access to water, for example terrestrial animals, they cannot afford to have ammonia as the chief excretory material. So, in those animals, ammonia is converted. Ammonia is converted into less toxic form. It is converted either into urea or uric acid. So, in ureotelic animals, ammonia first during the breakdown of proteins or amino acids by process of deamination. Amino group is removed from the amino acids, then that amino group is converted into ammonia, and that ammonia is then converted into urea. Urea is less toxic, and for removal of urea from the body, as much water is not required as for removal of urea. So, in ureotelic animals, ammonia is converted into urea. Mammals, including we human beings, are ureotelic. Then a third group of organisms, they are uricotelic, where the chief nitrogenous waste material is uric acid. Ammonia here is converted into uric acid. Instead of urea, it is converted into uric acid. Uric acid is least toxic of ammonia and is less toxic than ammonia and urea. Also, uric acid is almost insoluble in water. Uric acid is formed in the form of crystals, and for its removal water is not required. In the form of crystalline paste, this can be removed from the body. So, hardly any water is lost during uricotelic excretion or removal of nitrogenous waste material from the body in the form of uric acid. This type of excretion is suitable for animals which live in dry conditions. For example, reptiles and birds, they have uric acid as the chief nitrogenous waste material. So, as you saw, animals, they are broadly divided into these three groups basing on in what form they remove nitrogenous waste materials from the body. They can be either ammonotelic, they can be ureotelic, or they can be uricotelic. We human beings are ureotelic. That means in our case or in mammals, the chief nitrogenous waste material is urea. First ammonia is formed, then that ammonia is converted into urea. This process of conversion of ammonia into urea occurs in liver. So, this is the summary of that process which occurs in the liver for formation of urea. Ammonia is converted into less toxic urea and it occurs in the liver. This process of conversion of ammonia into urea, it occurs through several steps and it is a cyclic process. This diagram here shows that cyclic process. This cyclic process is known as ornithine cycle. Ornithine cycle or urea cycle. Here you see deamination occurs. Amino acids from the amino acid amino group is removed. That amino group is converted into ammonia. So, during this process of deamination, ammonia are formed. Then that ammonia first reacts with ornithine. It reacts with ornithine in presence of carbon dioxide to form citrullin, and during the process a molecule of water is released. Then that citrullin then again reacts with another molecule of ammonia, and during the process a molecule of water is released and it leads to formation of arginine. Then this arginine is split or it is hydrolyzed. You can see here water. This arginine is then hydrolyzed into ornithine and urea. So, here you see urea is being formed. So, this is the urea, the main nitrogenous waste material in case of human beings and mammals. And here you see when arginine is split, it is converted into urea and ornithine. So, ornithine is regenerated and again it is utilized. So, this cyclic process goes on in the liver, so that more and more of urea is formed. So, we now know that in case of human beings, ammonia which is first formed during a deamination is converted into less toxic urea, and that urea is removed from the body by the excretory system of human beings. So, next we will know the excretory system of human beings. So this diagram here shows the excretory system of human beings. You can see here there are a pair of kidneys. Two kidneys are there. These are the chief excretory organs in human beings. These kidneys, they are bean-shaped structure. They are located in the lower abdominal cavity towards the back. Two kidneys are there. From each kidney arises a tube. You can see here, this tube is known as ureter. Urine is formed here in the kidney, and that urine is carried to urinary bladder through this pipe like structure which is known as ureter. So from the inner side of each kidney arises a ureter. So you can see here, these are the two ureters. The ureters, they bring urine from the kidney, and the ureters they open into a sac like structure called urinary bladder, where urine is stored temporarily. Then from here it is passed out periodically through urethra. Each kidney is supplied by blood vessels. You can see here, this is the aorta which carries blood towards the kidney. This is aorta. From the aorta arises renal artery. You can see here two renal arteries. Each renal artery is entering a kidney. So here blood is brought by the renal artery to kidney for filtration, and after filtration the filtered blood is taken out, or it leaves the kidney through renal vein. You can see here, this is this solid line represents renal artery, and this channel here with dotted line, that represents the renal vein. So blood is brought to the kidney for filtration by the renal artery, which arises from the aorta. Then after filtration, the filtered blood leaves the kidney through the renal vein, and it joins the postcaval vein. So this is the excretory system of a human being. Here the main excretory organs are the kidneys. Now we will know the structure of kidney. When a transverse section of kidney is taken, it appears like this. This is the diagram of section of kidney. Externally, each kidney is covered by a fibrous capsule. Outside, each kidney is covered by a fibrous capsule. Then within the kidney, you will differentiate two parts. There is cortex and medulla. The outer part is known as cortex. This part, this is the cortex. The outer part of kidney is cortex, and this inner part is known as medulla. So immediately below the fibrous capsule, cortex is there. Cortex appears granular. In the medulla, you will see 10 to 15 pyramidal structures. You can see here, these are the pyramidal structures. In the medulla, you will see some pyramidal structures. They are known as renal pyramids. The wide part of each renal pyramid or the base faces towards the cortex, and the opposite end, which is narrow, the apical part, is known as papilla. Each papilla opens into a channel here, that is known as calyx. You can see here, this is the cortex and this is medulla. The cortical tissue extends into the medulla in between the renal pyramids. The cortical tissue which extends into the medulla between the renal pyramids is known as renal column of Bettini. You can see here, it is written renal column of Bettini. So the cortical tissue, it extends into the medulla in between the renal pyramids as renal column of Bettini. These are the renal pyramids. The renal pyramids opened into channels which are known as calyces, singular is calyx. The calyces then unite to form this space which is known as pelvis, and this pelvis, from the pelvis arises ureter. This is this part, this is the inner edge of the kidney which is towards the vertebral column. This is the inner edge. On the inner concave surface of the kidney, there is an indentation from where arises the ureter. You can see here, this is the ureter. Urine is formed here, and that urine is then carried from the kidney by the ureter. Each kidney, when it comes to dimension of the kidney, each kidney is about 4 to 5 inches long. Its width is 2 to 3 inches and thickness is about 1 inch. Within each kidney, there will be about 1 million tube-like structures. They are known as nephrons. So within each kidney, within each human kidney, there will be about 1 million nephrons. Nephrons, alternate name for nephron is uriniferous tubule. So within each kidney, there will be the nephrons or uriniferous tubules. These nephrons or the uriniferous tubules are the structural and functional units of kidney. Actually, it is within the uriniferous tubules of the kidney where urine is formed. Now I will show you how the nephrons are arranged within the kidney. So you can see here now I have drawn in this diagram of transverse section of kidney, I have drawn two nephrons. You can see here this thread like structure, it represents one nephron, and this one is another nephron or uriniferous tubule. So you can see here how they are arranged in the kidney. The nephrons are the structural and functional units of kidney, and two types of nephrons are found. One is cortical nephron, as you can see here I have written cortical nephron, and the second type is juxtamedullary nephron. Now we will see the structure of a nephron. Thereafter I will tell you what is the difference between juxtamedullary nephron and cortical nephron. So this is the diagram of a nephron. Nephron or uriniferous tubule. You can see here it is a tube-like structure. Each nephron is about 3 centimeter in length. Each nephron starts with a double-walled cup-like structure. You can see here this double-walled cup-like structure is known as Bowman's capsule or renal capsule. You can see here in this Bowman's capsule there is a mass of capillaries. You can see here this represents a mass of capillaries. This capillary mass is known as glomerulus. Bowman's capsule together with glomerulus is known as renal corpuscle. Alternate name for renal corpuscle is Malpighian body. This line here indicates afferent arteriole. And this one represents efferent arteriole. So this is the Bowman's capsule. This is afferent arteriole. It is bringing blood to this Bowman's capsule. Within this Bowman's capsule, this cup-like cavity of Bowman's capsule, this afferent arteriole, it breaks up into capillaries. These represent capillary mass. This capillary mass is known as glomerulus. Then again those capillaries they unite and they form efferent arteriole. So blood is brought here to the glomerulus by the afferent arteriole, then here filtration occurs, thereafter it leaves the glomerulus through efferent arteriole. This glomerulus together with Bowman's capsule is known as renal corpuscle or Malpighian body. Then this convoluted or coiled part immediately behind Bowman's capsule, this part, this segment is known as proximal convoluted tubule. Then after proximal convoluted tubule, you see here U-shaped part. You can see here this part of nephron is shaped like English letter U. This U-shaped part of nephron is known as loop of Henle. This loop of Henle plays an important role in producing concentrated urine. So this is the loop of Henle. The loop of Henle has two limbs. This one which is going downwards, this is the descending limb. It moves downwards, that is from cortex towards the medulla. You can see here in this diagram, this is the loop of Henle. You can see here this is proximal convoluted tubule. You can see here it is going into the medulla. So the part of the loop of Henle immediately behind the proximal convoluted tubule, this part or this limb is known as a descending limb. It is called descending limb because it is descending or moving downwards from the cortex towards the medulla. Then it takes a U-turn, then it goes upwards. That's why it is called ascending limb. In this diagram you see this is the ascending limb which goes towards the cortex from medulla. Then that ascending limb joins another convoluted part of the nephron. This convoluted part is known as distal convoluted tubule. Then that distal convoluted tubule joins a collecting duct. You can see here this is the collecting duct. To one collecting duct, several distal convoluted tubules open, cut sections of which I have drawn. So, this is the distal convoluted tubule, it leads to collecting duct. To each collecting duct, several distal convoluted tubules they open. So, this is the structure of nephron. Here you mark this is afferent arteriole, it breaks up into capillaries, then it leaves the glomerulus as efferent arteriole. This efferent arteriole again breaks up into capillaries which surround the proximal and distal convoluted tubule and also the loop of Henle. Now, I will show you how the capillaries they are arranged around the nephron. You can see here how the efferent arteriole is breaking up into capillaries. So, here you mark this is the efferent arteriole which takes blood away from the glomerulus. Then on emerging from the Bowman's capsule, this efferent arteriole breaks up into capillaries. You can see here I have drawn these black lines, so they represent capillaries, blood capillaries. So, these blood capillaries they surround the proximal and distal convoluted tubule. Then mark here capillaries also they run along the loop of Henle. This U-shaped part of nephron is loop of Henle. So, this is the this capillary network is known as peritubular capillary bed, from which capillaries extend downwards and they also surround the loop of Henle. Here there will be cross connections also like this. So, just as the loop of Henle has a descending and ascending limb, similarly here you see the blood capillary has also descending and ascending part. So, this is the efferent arteriole, it breaks up into capillaries. These capillaries, this capillary bed is known as peritubular capillary bed, and from the peritubular capillary bed, capillaries arise which surround the loop of Henle. The capillary network or capillary bed which surrounds the loop of Henle is known as vasa recta. So, this was the structure of nephron along with the surrounding blood capillaries. Here a little while ago I was talking about the two types of nephrons. In each kidney there will be about 1 million such nephrons. the nephrons, they fall into two categories. One is juxtamedullary nephron, the other is cortical nephron. Mark here, I have drawn one juxtamedullary nephron and one cortical nephron. See here the difference. In this nephron, this is the proximal, this is the Bowman's capsule, this is proximal convoluted tubule, this is loop of Henle, and this is distal convoluted tubule, this is the collecting duct. Here I have drawn another nephron, this is the cortical nephron. You can see here, this is the Bowman's capsule, this is proximal convoluted tubule, and this one is the loop of Henle, this is the distal convoluted tubule, and it is connected to the collecting duct. Mark here the difference in the length of the loop of Henle. This is cortical nephron, this is juxtamedullary nephron. You mark here the loop of Henle is short in case of cortical nephron. It extends a little distance into the medulla. This part is medulla and this outer part is cortex. So, you see here the loop of Henle in cortical nephron is short and it extends a short distance only into the medulla. But mark here in the juxtamedullary nephron, you can see here the loop of Henle, it is very long and it extends a long distance into the medulla. In the kidney, 80 to 85% of the nephrons are cortical nephrons, whereas only 10 to 15% of the nephrons they are juxtamedullary nephrons. When there is a normal water availability in the body, the water regulation in the body is maintained by cortical nephrons. But when there is a shortage of water in the body or water needs to be retained in the body, then juxtamedullary nephrons come into play. So, they differ in their activity. Cortical nephrons they are active when water retention is not required. Body has plenty of water, but when water retention is required, it is the juxtamedullary nephrons which come into play, and they help in producing a highly concentrated urine, and water is retained in the body. So, with this structure of kidney in mind and the structure of nephron and its blood supply in mind, we will discuss the mechanism of urine formation, that we will discuss in our next class.